Hello, this is David Bramlett, and today we're going to talk about Rosslair Security's new product release, which is our AC-825 panel. The AC-825 IP panel comes standard with 4 readers, 8 inputs, 4 outputs, and 2 auxiliary inputs and outputs. Utilizing our OSDP and expansion modules, we can expand the AC-825 IP up to 54 doors. The AC-825 also has 2 OSDP readers. They are connected to the OSDP port or the RS-485 port, and utilizing these 2 OSDP ports, we can now have 6 readers standard, or with the D805 module have 10 readers with the AC-825. AC-825 has the capability of 60,000 users, 500,000 events. We have also redesigned the cabinet. The cabinet is now slightly larger, has a cable management system with it. It is lighted. The new AC-825 panel, combined with our Axtrax NG software, now has bidirectional push communications. And what we mean by this is that the legacy panels, always the software was going out asking, do you have information for me? And then the panels would respond. Now with the new software, the software is just sitting there listening for the panel to let it know that it has information, and once it is notified that a panel has information, that information is sent to the software. This allows us higher speed. It allows us to use less memory, less processor speed, and is much more efficient. It is also now full duplex, which our legacy panels were only half duplex. It is a 128-bit encrypted communications, and it is also driven by the Axtrax NG software, the same software that drives our legacy products. And the only change really made to the software at all is how that it looks at the panel itself. Everything else, as far as users, as far as every other capability within Axtrax NG, is the same. As we said earlier, we can expand this to 54 doors utilizing our expansion modules. These expansion modules are tied to the AC-825 using the RS-485. And the 4 different modules that we have are a D805, which is a 4-door expansion. We have a P805, which has 16 inputs and 8 outputs. We have an R805, which is 16 outputs. We have an S805, which has 16 inputs. Some of our enhancements with the new AC-825 is the newly designed cabinet, easy access to our TCP/IP port. The new power supply has 4 amps, and this will leave us with approximately 2 amps available for locks. We have a lighted cabinet. We have 2 inputs per reader. We have a Rex and a door monitor both. We've changed the design of the board to where all of our readers are on the left hand side and all of our inputs and outputs are on the right hand side. We do have 2 OSDP readers that can be installed on this panel. There is nothing that needs to be added, only the OSDP readers themselves, and that expands the 825 out to 6 readers. And then the main AC-825 board and the expansion modules are screw-in attached versus the old standoffs that we had in our legacy products. It's very easy to exchange, add modules or panels with the new layout. I want to talk about the layout of the new AC-825. And as we have talked earlier, now the new design has all of our readers on the left hand side, all of our inputs and outputs on the right hand side. You will notice that the new board does come with dip switches just like the legacy, but with the new 825 there is no setting of the dip switches that's required as far as the AC-825 and the piggyback module that is placed onto the 825 itself. The other expansion boards, you will need to set dip switches on those, but not on the primary AC-825. Same as the legacy, wiring is exactly the same. This is reader 1, 2, 3, and 4. Red, black, green, white, brown, purple, exactly the same. On the right hand side is our inputs. As we talked earlier, we now have two inputs, one for door monitor, one for the Rex, and then of course the third connection here is for the common. Outputs are the same, normally open, normally closed, and a common. And then we have the 4 outputs for the 4 readers. We do have auxiliary input outputs. They are the exact same as the standards. These can be used for any input that you would want to bring into the system, any output that you would want to take out of the system. Remember that if you do use either of the 2 OSDP reader possibilities that we have with this panel, that utilizes the auxiliary input outputs, and those are no longer available for auxiliary. We do have a USB port on the panel itself that's not in use at this time, and we do have a G bus that is not used at this point in time. The AC-825 IP has a new expansion cabinet. This expansion cabinet is a ME1505 cabinet. Exactly the same thing as the ME1525 cabinet that houses the AC-825. The only difference is the brackets, and we are capable of mounting 2 of the expansion modules in this cabinet instead of the AC-825. The expansion cabinet does come with lights. It does have the same 4 amp power supply, and these modules are connected using RS-485 back to the primary AC-825 panel. The standards for RS-485 would need to be followed very closely. We are looking at a maximum 4,000 feet using a Cat5 24 gauge shielded twisted cable with terminations. With that, we should be able to expand the cabinet out to 54 readers or any combination of 13 of the expansion modules. Installing the new Axtrax AS525 is basically the exact same software installation as the legacy panels. We will be utilizing Axtrax NG software, and you can find our software always at our website for US at www.axtraxng.com. And if you scroll down to our software, the versions 26.x and above support the new AC-825 panel. So you'll want to download the software, and we will want to run the software. we will want to install both server and client. During this process, please make sure that you look at the attached files in the zip file, which will show you how to install the software. It will take you completely through step by step how to install the software, how to install the Microsoft SQL 2012. Once we have the software installed, the only difference from the AC-825 and the legacy is that when I create a network, my AC type now allows me to select AC-825. Here is where I will tell it that it's 1 reader per door or 2 readers per door, and tell it what expansion modules or piggybacks are attached to the AC-825, not the expansion modules that would be placed in an ME1505. So in my case, I only have an AC-825. I hit my configuration. My panel is the 6F panel. All I do is select that panel. I apply. I make sure to highlight the correct MAC address, tell it OK. One thing to note, and I didn't talk about this, is that we are assigning 2 ports at this point in time. We are assigning a primary and a secondary port. This is full duplex communications that we had talked about earlier. Once I tell it OK, you'll see that I start a download, and our software now does the finding of the panel or creating the panel, so that we no longer have to go through that. So as you'll see, my network is OK. I've started my download count, and so I am now waiting for the panel to initialize and to do my download count. It does take longer for the 825 to connect than our legacy panels have in the past. You'll notice that it'll probably take sometimes up to 4 to 5 minutes for it to actually do the connect. So be patient. If you see your download count, once you activate the panel, you know that it's talking, so just give it time. Okay, after we have now connected to our panel and have made sure that everything is connected, the next thing that we want to do is connect our expansion modules. It's done the same way as the legacy panels. It looks just like a panel, and all we do in this case is we would highlight our network, we would do a find panel, click on find panels, and it will come up and show us our expansion module, our D805. Now this expansion module was installed in a ME1505 cabinet. It's a D805, and I want to set it up as 1 reader per door. Hit add panels. And now I'm initialized, looking to do my configuration download, and should start this download in just a minute there. Now we've completed our configuration download, and then the next thing that we want to look at is firmware updates. Firmware updates are somewhat different as far as visual, but everything else is exactly the same. So highlight my panel, I click on firmware update, and you'll see that I have multiple options now. You'll see that I have an AC-825 option and extensions. So if I am doing, and I should do, the 825 first, it will pick the correct panel, the correct firmware, and we tell it OK. Tell it OK, and we'll start our download. And our new connection speed, legacy, we always suggested 9600. The software automatically sets it up at 115.2, so you'll notice that our downloads are pretty quick, but you'll also notice that downloads have increased up to about 1100 versus we were sitting in the 460 range. We'll see our progression bar. We'll see our download count. And as before, it downloads the firmware, it stops the progression bar, it sits here for approximately 1 minute with the AC-825 panel, and then it will download our configuration. You will find about 50% of the time, once the firmware update has completed, it will show the panel as inactive. We're working to correct this. Simply need to go to your panel, recheck the enable box, and then it will start your configuration download. Once that is completed for the 825, then we'll do our expansion module. We'll start the configuration download for the expansion module. And we're complete. The next thing that we need to look at is doing the firmware update to the expansion board itself. The way that we do that is we highlight extensions. We will select the board that we're going to upgrade, and slightly different than what we're used to before, we'll need to power down the board itself, the expansion board. We'll need to select the board, tell it OK, start it, plug the board back in, and then it will proceed with the upgrade. Our firmware is complete. It'll show us that it's succeeded. Then we'll tell it OK. One thing to note as far as our expansion modules, if the software or the firmware on the expansion module is version 12 or above, we can do it from the software. If you happen to get, and we do not think any went out, a version 3 firmware, it'll have to be exchanged. We will have to do that firmware update here, but we do not believe anything went out under a version 12. From this point, everything is exactly as we know in the legacy. Adding users, setting up timing and time zones and holidays, our access groups, everything is exactly the same as what we are used to in the past. It is very important that we configure our firewalls. In the zip file that you'll download with the 26.x, we have created a PDF for firewall configurations. We need to follow this through step by step, making sure that we set up all the exceptions in our firewalls so that our software, our Extracts-NG, can talk to the panels. Make sure that you follow this step very thoroughly. If you don't, you'll have a number of issues from not getting events, or not seeing the panel, not connecting to the panel. In the past, with the legacy products, it wasn't as important Today it is a must. So please make sure you open up network configuration for Axtrax NG26 and set up your firewalls.